Welcome, friends, to a tale woven from the threads of history and legend, Xi Shi, the beauty who felled a kingdom with a single glance. In the turbulent spring and autumn period, around 500 BCE, China was a land of warring states, ambition, and fragile alliances. Among its legends, Xi Shi shines brightest, one of the four beauties, alongside Yang Guifei, Wang Zhaojun, and Diaochan. They say her face could launch 1,000 schemes, her grace drown a dynasty. From a humble village girl washing silk by a river to a pawn in a king's revenge, her story is one of sacrifice, cunning, and enigma. Did she truly bring down the mighty state of Wu, or was she merely a shadow in history's play? Today, we'll trace her life, step by step, through war-torn lands and whispered myths. So, settle in, and let's journey back to a time when beauty was both a gift and a blade. Xi Shi was born in Zhuji, a quiet corner of the Yu state, modern Zhujiang, where rivers cradled mulberry groves and silk was the heartbeat of life. The year is uncertain, perhaps 506 BCE, but her origins were humble. Her father, a woodcutter or fisherman, and her mother toiled alongside the common folk. Legend paints her as a vision even then, hair like ink cascading over her shoulders, eyes that caught the dawn. They called her Shuriguan, light of the stream, for her habit of washing silk by the water's edge, where fish would pause, stunned by her reflection.
The spring and autumn period was a fractured time, hundreds of states vying for power, the Zhou dynasty crumbling. Yu and Wu, neighbors across the Taihu Lake, were locked in rivalry. Xi Shi's village lay in Yu, a land of resilience, soon to face ruin.
She wasn't just beauty, though. Folk tales say she sang as she worked, her voice weaving through the bamboo, and danced with a grace that mimicked the river's flow. These gifts, unnoticed by kings, were the seeds of her destiny. But peace wouldn't last, war was brewing, and her life was about to unravel like the silk she spun. In 494 BCE, the state of Wu struck. King Fuchai, ambitious and ruthless, crushed Yu's army at Fujiao. Yu's King Goujian was captured, his capital razed, his people enslaved. The once proud ruler knelt before Fuchai, tasting humiliation as Wu's banner rose over his lands. For 3 years, Goujian served as a hostage in Wu. Some say he slept on brushwood and drank gall to fuel his vengeance, his every breath a vow to rise again.
This defeat is documented in Shiji, Sima Qian's records of the Grand Historian. Goujian's submission wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Released in 491 BCE, he returned to Yu, plotting with his minister family to rebuild.
But swords alone wouldn't topple Wu. Fuchai was a warrior king, his state bloated with pride and power, his will forged in triumph. Goujian needed a subtler weapon, one that could pierce Fuchai's heart, not his armor. Steel breaks stone, but beauty bends the soul, a river's whisper outlasts the storm. Enter Xi Shi. Legend says family scoured Yu's villages for a beauty to wield as a dagger, someone whose grace could unravel a kingdom. When they found her by the river, washing silk as fish paused in awe, her fate shifted. No longer a girl of humble threads, she'd become a tool of war, a sacrifice for her fallen state. Xi Shi didn't walk into Wu's court untrained. In Yu's hidden groves, family and Goujian molded her into a living snare. She traded her homespun cloth for silk robes, her river songs for courtly melodies. They taught her the fan dance, delicate arcs mimicking cranes in flight, and the art of coy glances that could unravel a man's resolve. Her beauty was sharpened like a blade, her every step rehearsed to enchant. Her smile was spring, her sigh the autumn wind, irresistible, inevitable.
This training is apocryphal, from later tales like Dong Zhou Lai Guoji. Did it happen? Perhaps not so formally, but beauty as a political tool wasn't new.
Xi Shi wasn't alone, another maiden, Xingdan, joined her, a lesser echo of her radiance. Together, they were Yu's gift to Wu, wrapped in silk and secrets. Family, some say, fell for her during these months, his stern gaze softening. But love had no place here, this was duty, cold and clear. When the training ended, Xi Shi was ready, a weapon cloaked in grace, bound for enemy lands. In 490 BCE, or so the tales guess, Xi Shi crossed into Wu, a gift from Goujian to Fuchai. The Wu capital, Gusu, near modern Suzhou, gleamed with tiled roofs and lotus ponds. As she stepped into the palace, silk trailing like mist, the court fell silent. Fuchai, a king hardened by war, froze. Her dance unfurled, fans fluttering like wings, and her voice, soft as rain, sang of distant rivers. He was hers before the music faded. Her eyes held stars, her steps a tide, Wu's fate was sealed in that first gaze. Courtiers whispered, was this a bribe or a trap? Fuchai didn't care. He showered her with jade, silks, a pavilion by the lake. Xi Shi smiled, her mission unfolding.
Fuchai's reign was peak Wu, his canals and armies rivaled the North's powers. But his pride was a crack, and Xi Shi slipped through it.
She wasn't just beauty, she was Yu's whisper in his ear, urging folly while Yu sharpened its spears. Fuchai's obsession grew. He built the Guanhua Palace, Palace of Beauties, for Xi Shi, its corridors echoing with her laughter. Lychees from the south, rare then, arrived to please her. He lingered by her side, watching her dance over lotus ponds, neglecting his generals. Wu's granaries emptied to fund her whims, its borders softened as Yu rebuilt in shadow.
Yuishu hints at Fuchai's decline, his minister Wu Zixu warned of Yu's resurgence, but Fuchai executed him in 484 BCE, blinded by arrogance. Xi Shi's role? Exaggerated, perhaps, but a perfect symbol of his distraction.
Her beauty was a mirror, reflecting Wu's ruin in its gleam. She played her part, feigning delight, coaxing Fuchai into feasts, while Yu's spies reported back. Was she happy? The tales don't say. Some paint her as a patriot, others a reluctant pawn. Either way, Wu frayed, walls unmanned, coffers bare, while Fuchai dreamed of her, not his kingdom. By 473 BCE, Yu struck back. Goujian, hardened by years of planning, led his armies north. Wu's defenses, weakened by neglect, buckled. Gusu fell, its palaces torched, its king cornered. Fuchai, waking from his stupor, faced ruin. Legend says he turned to Xi Shi in his final hours, but she stood apart, silent as Yu's banners rose.
Shiji confirms Wu's fall, Fuchai took his own life, unable to bear defeat. Xi Shi's role is folklore's flourish, but her presence amplifies the tale.
Her beauty lit the fuse, and Wu burned in its own flame. Did she feel triumph or sorrow? The chaos swallowed her voice. As Yu reclaimed its pride, Xi Shi stood at the edge, her mission done, her purpose spent. But what became of her? History blurs here, leaving only whispers. What happened to Xi Shi? The tales diverge. One says Fuchai's men, blaming her for Wu's fall, tied stones to her feet and cast her into a lake, her beauty sinking beneath the waves. Another claims family, her silent admirer, spirited her away. They sailed Taihu Lake, vanishing into a fisherman's life, free at last. A third whispers she returned to Zhuji, fading into obscurity. Her end was water, whether tomb or escape, none can say.
No record confirms her fate, Yuishu mentions her briefly, then stops. The drowning tale feels like poetic justice, the family romance, a hopeful gloss.
Perhaps she chose silence, her sacrifice complete. Her absence fuels her myth, beauty too fleeting to hold. Xi Shi's shadow stretches long. Historians debate, was she a femme fatale, engineering Wu's doom, or a pawn in Goujian's game? The truth lies between, beauty as power, wielded by others. Her name became a byword for allure, Xi Shi like beauty, still echoes in Chinese. She inspired Tang poems, Yuan operas like Washing Silk, and modern films. Zhuji claims her with pride, its rivers now tourist trails. Unlike Yang Guifei's opulence, Xi Shi's story is restraint, sacrifice over splendor. Her face launched no ships, but sank a throne, her legacy a quiet ripple. She's the first of the four beauties in time, her tale a mirror to China's fractious past. Today, she's less tragedy than symbol of cunning, of cost, of beauty's double edge. And so, Xi Shi's story ends, or begins again, in our telling. From a riverside girl to a kingdom's downfall, her life was a thread pulled tight by war and will. Was she hero, victim, or both? That's for you to decide. Her tale reminds us, beauty can build or break, depending on the hands that shape it. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. What do you think? Did Xi Shi choose her path, or was it chosen for her? Drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this dive into history, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. We've got more legends to unravel. Until next time, keep chasing the stories that shape us.